let's get started on qualitative research and let's make that comparison, how to get an idea of how it's different from quantitative research. So let's say you're interested in doing research on informal care, right? So people in the family taking care of family members that have fallen ill. It might be in a romantic relationship, it might be in a family or an extended family in which people take care of each other instead of having formal care in the hospital or other care from other institutions. So in a Dutch newspaper article, I think it's already 10 years ago or so, some doubt was cast on whether the family ties that people usually have are strong enough to allow for informal care. Right? So basically, the question is: does providing informal care to your partner or your mother or your father or your siblings put too much stress on those family ties? And that's a real concern because at least back in the day, but I think that's still the case, is that at least by the Dutch government, families were more expected to a larger degree to take care of themselves and each other, basically, instead of having the government pay for their care. So there was put a lot of reliance on informal care. So it's a relevant question that became more relevant because of those changes in the government funding. So you could do research into this, right? The relationship between the strength of family ties and whether how those change or come under stress because of providing informal care for ill family members. And we could contrast those two approaches. Let's look at a quantitative approach first, because that's the one you're familiar with, right? So basically what you would do, as Keijer did in 2001, he did some research on this topic within the quantitative paradigm, and he did research on the basis of equity theory. And perhaps you remember talking about this in social psychology. I briefly mentioned it in one of the lectures. And equity theory is basically an economic approach applied to relationship satisfaction. So the degree to which we are satisfied with the relationship we have, a family relationship or a romantic relationship, is predicted by equity, basically, whether you get as much out of the relationship as you invest into it. That's basically one way of looking at it. And on the basis of that theory, you could set up a hypothesis, right? So you could say equity and relationship satisfaction are related, and then you plug in a couple of questionnaires in your research with different Likert skills about relationship satisfaction, physical condition, and fairness. And so the degree to which people view the situation as fair and how they are doing in a physical sense and how satisfied you are with your relationship, you measure with Likert skills using existing questionnaires, perhaps even validated questionnaires. And you use those questionnaires and you compare two groups, right? So you have a group of patients, of cancer patients and their partners, and a control group of people. And then you can even look at how that changes over time if you're so interested. So and then you can draw some conclusions about the relationship between feeling ill, feeling disadvantaged, and relationship satisfaction. So you set up a hypothesis, quantitative hypothesis, a correlation. You predict a positive correlation, or at least a correlation between equity and relationship satisfaction. And you measure that with existing questionnaires, standardized questionnaires, and by comparing different groups with each other. All right, so you might be interested in the correlation. You might be saying, well, there's a difference between people who've been struck by illness and people who haven't been struck by illness. Sounds familiar, right? We have a theory, we derive a hypothesis, we test that in a quantitative way by using, at least to some extent, standardized tools to draw our conclusions. Then, to the qualitative approach, my head is in the way. Let's see if I can, this fixes it at least. To contrast that with a qualitative approach into a similar topic. So let's say we're not dealing with a group of cancer patients here, but patients with multiple sclerosis, which is an affliction of the muscles, if I remember correctly. It's a chronic disease, and it has a high impact on people's functioning, and of course also on the partners of people who were struck down by this disease. And let's say your starting point is different. So you're not saying, I have this theory here about relationship satisfaction, or you're saying that for this specific disease and this specific situation in this specific country, there's not a lot of literature about what it's like for the people receiving care in the context of in the context of a romantic relationship, so receiving care from their partners. So you start with a more open question instead of a hypothesis. You're asking what links both partners to the relationship in a relationship that changes over time because one of the partners becomes ill. Because you don't have a specific hypothesis derived from a theory, but just an open question, you use a different research tool. You're not using structured interviews or standardized interviews. No, you're using semi-structured interviews. So you do start out with a general guideline of what you want to talk about, different topics. But it's open to an extent that you can pick up on any topic that the people you're talking to deem relevant in that situation, right? That basically reflects you acknowledging that you don't know yet what might be relevant in the situation because there's not a lot of research or understanding about it. Then you go about transcribing the interviews. You write down basically everything that has been said, and you try to distill some themes from that transcription and overarching themes. So what type of topics play a role here as well? So in this case, in the research of Bouye et al., they noticed that recurring themes in the different interviews was the fact that people dealt in some way or described in some way how they were dealing with the inevitability of the situation of getting ill. And also the theme of hypothetical reciprocity, which is what the researchers ended up calling it, returned in the interviews as well. So what's important in individuals in a romantic relationship that face these struggles is the consideration that it could have just as well happened to my partner, and then I would have supported him or her as well. So those are the overarching themes that people noticed in the transcripts of the interviews. And they also drew some conclusions or had some interpretations about how the partners looked at marital fidelity, right? So perhaps people were more tempted to stay together out of a sense of duty instead of really loving each other, right? So there's a change in how they experience the relationship, and there's also a change in what links both partners to the relationship, which was the question that they started out asking in the beginning. So this is a somewhat detailed description of different approaches into a related topic, right? So it's both about how does a relationship change when people provide informal care for their partner, and try to show you how a quantitative and a qualitative approach to that topic what it might look like. And I hope you notice the differences and similarities. So what you hopefully saw is that in a quantitative approach, we're more interested in general relationships. So how does something change if, in general, people that have a relationship, one of the partners become ill? We derive hypotheses from theory, and there's an emphasis on validated questionnaires and conclusions about the differences between groups, or based on the differences between groups. In a qualitative approach, as you've seen, there's more of a focus on people's experiences. So what is it like to be a partner providing informal care, and what is it like to be a partner receiving informal care, and how does that change your perspective on a relationship, your experience of the relationship? The conversation topics for the interview aren't set in stone in advance, but they can come up in the actual interviews themselves. No statistics is used. There's just the coding and interpreting of the transcript, so the written down version of the interview. And the conclusions are based on the shared themes that people or the researchers notice derive from that transcript. Yes, so these are some of the differences that you might notice. What we can at least emphasize on the basis of that is that what at least is central to that qualitative approach, or in which people see a call for more qualitative research, is the fact that human behavior is not a simple response to stimuli, but it depends on how the world is understood, and we should be interested in how people understand or make sense of the world, and therefore we should ask them, and perhaps therefore semi-structured interviews are more useful than laying down specific categories in Likert skills and preconceived questions in advance. It's basically different if you were a media researcher and you could show people the movie Schindler's List, and you could give a short description of what the movie is, right? It's a movie about the Second World War, etc., etc. But that description won't cover what that stimulus is like for the people watching the movie, right? That would call for a different type of research. What we've also seen or noticed or glanced in the comparison I made is that the research is based on words instead of numbers, right? So that's what makes it qualitative, or what makes for the difference with the quantitative approach, is that we're not looking at the averages and comparing them between conditions or changes in numbers over time. No, we're trying to get a sense of what people are dealing with, getting a sense of the overarching themes in how people describe their own experiences. In that sense, the analysis of mental concepts is different as well, right? So you might be talking to different people that suffer from depression and get different prototypes, examples, prototypical experiences of depression, or what it's like to suffer from depression from different individuals, and write that down instead of getting a generalized idea of what depression is, what the construct of depression is, depending on the presence or absence of such and such symptoms. So you're looking at individual experience instead of differences between groups, as we talked about. And what's also different between the two approaches is that you could say that qualitative research offers more of a rich description, right? So there's more detail for each individual that you study as relevant and actually describe as relevant, instead of what you might see as a more superficial description of a large group of people, right? So if you summarize basically everyone in the experimental group as an average score of such and such number compared to the control group, you're basically summarizing every individual in the experimental group with one single number. And in that sense, you could call that a more superficial description. There's more data crunching going on, and there's less of a detailed description of all the individuals in that specific group. And of course, we talked about research being less structured and more flexible. This is related to what I said in response to the question just had, is that ideally, or at least that's how some qualitative research describe it, qualitative research makes for an answer-driven method versus a method-driven approach. So basically what they mean is we're interested in getting answers to certain questions, right? So what is it like for a person in such and such situation? And what matters is that you get a useful answer and a clear answer to that question, not necessarily the way you get to that answer. So that gets less of an emphasis. And that they contrast that with the method-driven approach that you're familiar with. So it's not about saying you should do research conducting these and these steps. And no, it's about, in a more general way, providing clear and informative and useful answers to specific questions. You might compare it, as some of the people in research in the literature have done, to looking at, I mean, you don't necessarily have to agree with this. I don't think I actually agree with this, but this is the comparison they make. They say that, well, you could look at a painting and say, well, yeah, this is a beautiful painting. And how should I go about painting this? An answer-driven method would be getting your own type of answer to the question, how do I paint something or create something that moves people, if we're talking about paintings. And a method-driven approach would be, well, you first take your paintbrush and then you start with color number 33. You dip your brush in the paint and then you start in the lower right corner, of et cetera, et cetera. So a description of the steps you need to take to get this exact painting. Qualitative researchers would say, why is that interesting, right? Why would we need a specification of the steps that somebody else took and adhere to the same exact steps ourselves as well? Well, what we're interested in is the answers to questions and go about the way in which we should go about getting answers to those questions in a clear and open manner. So basically what you could say is that qualitative research to some extent uses the same concepts, but they have different meanings, right? So there is data, but it's textual data or visual information that will be analyzed instead of numbers. There is a sample, but it's a targeted selection of participants, which they call purposive sampling or theoretical sampling. So depending on your theory or the development of your theory whilst doing the research, or depending on the purpose of your research, you draw a targeted sample instead of a random sample, which might be shocking if you compare it to qualitative research. And there is something they call theory, but which is different as well. So the theory is not necessarily something you derive hypotheses from that you can test, but theory is more the general themes that are useful in better understanding the words that people use to describe their experiences. So I hope by now you have some idea about the differences between qualitative and quantitative approaches.